Right, so I'm seeing some people on here. Should probably do an audio check. If you can hear me, just let me know. And it's gonna have to happen in English, Mr. Torres. I don't speak Spanish or Portuguese. Malta, cool. Tor Hansen, yeah, holla. All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Temu, Audio Works. Thanks for confirming that. I had a problem at one point a couple months ago. That was embarrassing. Took me half an hour to just get the audio working, you know, while people were watching. That fucking sucked. Katarina, hey. So yeah, that fucking sucked. So yeah, yeah, you're all flashing by pretty quickly. It's nice to see everybody. I'm probably just gonna be able to like get back on like random comments and you know, do my best. I'm seeing some people ask if I'm ready for the tour. You know, if you asked me a week ago, I I would have said fuck no. I'm getting closer to it. Just been dealing with a lot of technical stuff. Setting everything up, trying to make it as easy as possible. So you know, because it's gonna be me and Tim, by the way, the old Mortiis drummer. Not Leo. He goes way back. Tim was came after that. He toured with us since the Comic Rise tour of 2010. So basically, he came on board for Perfectly Defect and Great Deceiver and those records, and he's going to be doing drum stuff for me on this tour. So, you know, that's pretty fucking cool. It's a bit of you know, he was part of what I consider to be the classic lineup. So I'm happy to have him back. But yeah, getting closer and closer. Tomorrow I'm checking out. I had to buy a projector. I hope I can get some use out of that for the video shit that I do on stage. I haven't been able to test it yet. That's tomorrow. But yeah, getting ready, man. I missed about 84,000 comments now. Cheers from Chile. Hello from Chile. Cool. Montana County. I was in Montana, wasn't I? I don't even know. No, maybe I wasn't. Maybe that was a long time ago when we toward the U.S. I don't think maybe we didn't go to Montana, so we got to go there, huh? Cool, Daniel. Parma, yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Italy, I haven't been there for a long time. So question from me: would I actually are there any European countries that have pretty severe COVID restrictions still? I hear Germany is still pretty tight. I'm not sure. Maybe somebody knows. Hey, Sam. Australia, that would be great. You know, when the fucking when the pandemic hit, I was talking to Martin, the same guy that booked me last time in 2018 about doing another Australian tour, and then of course Corona came along, and you know, everything died. I hope to pick that conversation back up again. Well, you know, I just gotta get this tour out of the way. You know, I'm making it sound like I don't want to do it. That's not the case. But I would love to come back to Australia, but maybe I should do it with different music. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'd love to come back, man. Thank you. Somebody said I was an inspiration. Thank you. All right, cool. Michigan, Bulgaria. Bulgaria's cool now. Cool. Good. Quebec. Cool. Noah. All right. I'm just looking at everybody. Colombia. Yeah, we never got to go there yet. Costa Rica, same thing. We tried to go to both Costa Rica and Colombia when I went to South America back in 2018 too. Fell through for some reason. Yeah. Serbia, well, I don't know what the promoters tried to do this time, man, because, you know, it's a Mayhem tour, really. I'm main support, but at the end of the day, it's a Mayhem tour. So I'm not really talking to the promoters. You know, I mean, I'm basically just talking to my own manager, and he's in touch with Mayhem's people. So that's about it, I don't really have any kind of control over where we're going or where we're not going and why. Um, when I do a headline tour, I'll know a lot more. Um, so I don't know why we're not going to Serbia, unfortunately. Austria has no restrictions. Belgium would love to come back to Mexico, man. Greetings from London. We're going there. Yes, Corona sucks, Susan. I know. I'm safe. I had Corona and I'm vaccinated, so to be cynical, I don't give a fuck anymore. Um, I don't think anybody does. It's terrible to say it, but I think we're all so sick of it. No pun intended there. Portugal should be fine. Would love to go to Brazil. Reese, the tour is it's a solo thing with percussion, so it's me and Tim. So it's like a dungeon synth with an evolved version of that, I suppose you could say. I don't even know. It's dark and big and cool. you know. If you like the old stuff that I did, then chances are you're gonna like this. Um, I'm gay and listen to False Grind. I don't know who you are. Your tour manager got pissed off at me. You gotta repeat. I'm curious now. You gotta repeat whatever you fucking said there. I didn't catch it. Eric, as far as any new projects this time, this is going to be my final round probably of Spirit of Rebellion music. It has been since the album came out. It's been modified a little bit more to make it a bit different with percussion and more organic shit going on. So the live experience is going to be a little different than the album for sure. Colombian Festival. You don't just walk on to the festival, so you have to be booked first. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a bit difficult to get a show. Um, then you got to get the offers, and it's a whole process of before you can even set foot on stage. But um, would love to go to Colombia one day. Hello, Crystal. Beer and Kosish. Jana, oh yeah, yeah, we'll try. I mean, for sure. It's how busy I get. We met before. Um, but if I have time, I'll do it. Right? So cool. Yeah. Ecuador. Gabby, hello. Yeah, I'm missing those. There's this guy that listens to Fake Grind. I keep missing your messages. You just gotta repeat them. Um, remember most of Euronymous. I don't know if I had the time to talk too much. I mean, he was intense and very convinced within his mind and in regards to black metal and the way that he envisioned the way that should be. And I think that um, he inspired so many people to start and to really get into that whole sort of black metal mindset, which was probably a different mindset than it is today. Back in those days, back in like '92, it was a lot more extreme. But so he was kind of the forefather of that, but I think the most interesting thing that I think about him, at least my lasting memory of him, was he had very varied musical taste, which was not typical back in those days. A lot of people were quite narrow-minded, and even though he might have come across as narrow-minded, I don't think he was. He had a very eclectic, interesting record collection. So um, that's what I like to remember about him the most, to be honest with you. Orlando, yeah, Mexico, cool, yeah. Fort Wayne. When could I come to Chile tours? I don't know. When a stable, decent booking agent books me a South American tour, I'm ready to do it. France. Oh yeah, I recognize that dude. Um, Long questions are difficult to answer because it flashes by so quickly. So it's probably easier if you keep them short. Not because I don't want to deal with long questions, but because quite frankly, I can't seem to, they just flash by. Um, Comic book, somebody mentioned that. Yeah, that's still kind of halfway in the process. I mean, every a couple times a year, I sit down and I write down a whole bunch of ideas, and I just kind of develop it a bit more. And I still want to do it, and I still have a whole bunch of documents on my computer. Um, Million ideas. I actually did spend some time on it a while ago, just kind of developing it further. So still going on, but I always put music first, you know. Um, but I did kind of make up my mind, I guess, a while ago that when I'm done with the new album I'm working on right now, that I hope to finish at some point this year, um, I'd like to sit down and maybe just focus on a comic and see if I can make that work. Because I think the ideas are solid, you know, they're cool. For sure, still going on. Mauricio, equipment for my early albums. Quite simply, for the first 3 or 4 records, and that includes the first couple of Bond records and the Fata Morgana. I just used a Roland JV30, which is quite affordable. Back in those days, it was a very affordable, sort of what they call an entry-level synthesizer. And I used that one, and then after a little while, I got myself an Ensoniq SQ1, which is pretty much the same thing, just made by a company called Ensoniq. They no longer exist. And that was a very cheap one too. The cool thing about Ensoniq is back in the 80s, it was popular with bands like Skinny Puppy because it had, I don't know why exactly, but it sounded fucking awesome. Very sort of 80s digital industrial sounding. Not the one I had though, that was a bit of a cheaper one, but it's got some really cool sounds on it. Then a bit later on, I got myself this old 60s organ called the Filicorda that you can hear on the Centeso Diavoli records. And once I got to the Stargate album, I had kind of evolved into sampling. So I was using Kurzweil, the K2000, and you know, after that, I get into all kinds of equipment and industrial rock music and everything. So that's a different story. Holly Fox, yeah. Speak of the devil, right? You have the SQ1. Is the key still broken on it? I think there was a broken key. I got myself another one of those, actually, by the way, because I was going to re-record something, and I haven't done it yet. But I bought it, so it's sitting here. The SQ2, yeah, I heard about that. Never tried it. I saw somebody mention Neptune Towers. I remember Fenris got into that stuff, so that was cool. You know, his stuff was probably a bit more true to the whole idea of, you know, I don't even know the expression for it, but you know, Berlin School. I don't know how popular that expression is with the old dudes, but it's kind of like what we call it. He was closer to that stuff, I believe, or like space rock, you know. New woven patches. Yeah, I got a whole bunch of fucking woven patches coming in. 4 new designs. They're going with me on tour, I hope, because currently they're stuck somewhere in Europe because of COVID. I mean, that's going to be the excuse now for the next 15 years. Every time there's a delay, it's going to be like because of COVID. But that's what I'm being told by FedEx, you know. So I'm a little stressed out about it. But I'm being told it's going to make it, but I don't trust these people. But there should be some new stuff on the tour patches. If not, I'll just bring shit out of the web store. Thank you, Victor. Cheers from Italy. Cool. Someone's asking me how I'm doing. I'm doing well. Thank you very much. I'm training my Falcon eyes to scan as many messages as possible. Mayhem Mortiis experimental concept. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, but yeah, we are going on tour together. I think it's going to be. It's someone said it felt like it was going to be like a ceremonial experience, which is, I like the idea of it, where it's almost like a ritual opening the Mayhem show. I like the idea of that, actually. I think it's it might be accurate, as a matter of fact, and I'm totally okay with that. I think it's cool. We will have to live with COVID, yes, for that. That is true. But I'm not sure if it's going to be a valid excuse for every delay from now Oh yeah, Kharkiv. Yeah, that's so sad now, isn't it? Oh, fuck that. Yeah, I think about Kharkiv a lot because, as you said, I played there at the. It was a festival in a very cool industrial kind of building. I think they used to build. I'm not sure if they used to build tanks in there, an old factory, or if they used to build trains. It was something big and industrial, and it was a fucking great festival, and I had a good time. And now look at what's going on. Jeremy, my hair care for dreads. Not none. I do nothing to them. They haven't broken off yet. Um, I've been dreading for a long time, and the thing is, my hair grows really fast, so I have to cut him a lot though. You know, every like 6 months or at least once a year, I gotta take off like, 6, 7, maybe even more inches off of it. I just took a few months ago. I think I took off like fucking, I don't know, maybe 15 inches. It was a lot. Um, it just goes down to my ass like a couple of years in, and it's just down to my ass, man. It's impractical. It's stuck in fucking car doors and shit. No, I have not switched over to any M1 Mac. I'm aware of it. I quite frankly don't really care too much about computer technology. Um, I find it to be a pain in the ass because every time you switch over, nothing else, none of your old shit works anymore. So I'm a bit old school like that. As long as I can stick to whatever I've got right now that works, I will stick to it, you know? Then you have to kind of pull me kicking and screaming over to something new, you know? Adam, more shows in the US. I had issues with the sound guy. I have issues with Summit now. Yeah, I had a great time at the Blackest Man. That's a long time ago. Favorite horror soundtrack? I'm not sure. I think one of my favorite soundtracks, though, Blade Runner for sure. Pretty much any given Tangerine Dream soundtrack is great in my ears. I love Tangerine Dream though, so I couldn't pick one. I love Near Dark. Um, that is a horror movie, and Legend, of course. That's I think the American version has Tangerine Dream on it, and then the European version has something else, or the other way around. It's a bit weird. Um, and Evangelis soundtrack is fantastic too. Um, Second show was at the Whiskey. When I played at the Whiskey, that was with Jenna Torturers, wasn't it? I think that was a cool show. Um, Amoeba Records were great. It was so sorry to hear them having to fold or something happened and they had to close down right after I was there. That sucks, man. I think they reopened. Industrial remixes. Industrial remix album. That would be kind of cool. Not sure for what album that would. The Smell of Rain never really had a proper remix album, and I would have loved to do that and just supervise it and just get in touch with all these people that I would love to include. But um, the fact of the matter is, Eric owns it, and they are notoriously fucking awful to deal with. They keep proving that time and time again. So, quite frankly, I don't see it happening, man. Um, I would love to have a few Parasite God remixes. CBGB's with Janitors. That was fucking great too because we got in we got into a bit of an altercation with a doorman in the back because the back of the old CBGB's there's a door that is was absolutely covered in stickers, and then a small note saying "Do not open this door." And we were just gonna go outside in the back to put on all that cornstarch because we didn't want to make a mess inside. And an alarm went off, and this fucking door guy went ballistic on us, and we tried to explain to him we didn't see the sign, and he didn't fucking listen, and he kept getting shittier. So we got really fucking shitty. So there was like, while the intro, I think, to our show was going, we were fucking yelling at this guy in the back. We were almost like ready to kill the fucking guy. I was so fucking pissed off. I think I told the crowd, and this is a bit childish from me, obviously, but I think one of the first things I did was tell people in the audience that I would give them a free shirt if they killed the fucking door guy. I shouldn't have done that. But he was gone, though, by the time we got off stage. I wonder why. But, great place, though. There was a guy with dildos all over his body in the bathroom as well, right before the show. That was, nice. Um, BS? Yes, I did. Well, my brother-in-law did. That's a Swedish address. Even are you affiliated? Um, yeah, he sent me photos. Cool. Thank you. That's great. That was fucking fast too. You said express, and that was fucking express, man. So that's awesome. Emperor's live stream. Yeah, I mean they did great. I don't know if I want to do one. For various reasons. A Mortis show, unless you're in the room and experience it, and I don't want to sound pretentious, but unless you're in the room with it, with me, and you know the sound and the audio and the video that's going on, and you know sometimes I have props. Unless you're there, I fear that on a two-dimensional screen it'll come off as a bit static. So I just don't want to do it. You know, that's the reason, man. Ilyana, hey, how are you? Dale, hey man, yeah, good, good, good. Doing a lot of talking right now, which is good. Lyric, Everyone Leaves might be one of the best songs ever recorded. Oh, I don't know about that, but it's yeah, you got the promo. Yeah, fuck, wow, yeah. But Everyone Leaves, yeah, it's a nice song. I like it. I don't think it's the best, one of the best songs, but I mean, I'm really glad you like it, man. Thank you. Victor, as far as the most anticipated country venue, um, I've been so fucking busy getting ready for the tour. I haven't been able to think too much about the tour, or you know, the places. That's it's a good question. I think we're doing we might is there might be like a show in Macedonia, or is it Macedonia? I could be wrong though. If there is, then that's one of them. I've been there. I spent a night there in a hotel once, I think, on our way to Greece, many years ago. But I've never done a show there. But I don't know if maybe I'm just reading it wrong. Maybe there is no show there. I hope so. Leslie, well, I won't have a stall for me. There will be merchandise stalls or a merchandise stall. Um, but I usually, whenever possible, depending on timing and things like that, sometimes shows are very tight and you have to leave right after. Um, when when there's time, I try to wander around and you know, um, when I support other bands, I try to catch their show as often as I can. You know, so yeah, yeah. Hopefully, I'll be out there and be talking to people and things like that. But um, whether I'm going to be sitting behind the stall, that's probably not going to happen. But I'll be wandering around. You know, love the mask. Thank you, James. Um, wow, wow. Okay, Mortiis Day. Spirit in a Vacuum's chorus. Yeah, that's all right, man. Yeah, thank you. I have, yeah, the capital of Victor Vatavu. I'm butchering names here. I'm sorry. Is it Macedonia or Macedonia? That's great. I thought I saw that. Like I said, you know, I haven't had time to really kind of memorize all the shows, and it's 30 plus shows, so you know, it's a bunch of them. That's great. I'm looking forward to that one. But I mean, by and large, though, I mean, I try to differentiate between countries. You know, they're all, you know, I sound very communist now, but you know, everybody's similar or the same or equal. You know. Adam, yeah, the Sarah thing. You know, she had good reasons to tell me that she wasn't going to be able to do it. It was a whole combination of a bunch of stuff, and they're all valid reasons. And I think it's more like, you know, she would have to go into the details on that. But she emailed me a couple of weeks ago, and you know, with the big long email, where she explained to me, you know, the reasons why she couldn't do it, and it's totally fine. I was disappointed. Um, but you gotta understand it, you know. She thinks I'm pissed off, and I'm telling her I'm not pissed off. It's because I used to be a really pissed off person, and so she probably thinks I'm really pissed off, but maybe I was for 5 minutes, and then I'm like, well, I'm not pissed off. No, not really. Um, I was looking forward to having her on stage singing, um, because we haven't done anything together for so long. But on the other hand, she's done a whole bunch of studio work for upcoming music, so it's not like she's not in the picture. She just won't be on stage right now. Would love to come back to Canada. Maybe as a part of whenever I go over to the States next time. That's usually when it happens. That'd be great, Holly. Um, as far as releasing the old Reisen til Grotter og Ødemarker on a DVD, it's been talked about, so I think it's gonna happen. Don't quite know exactly when yet. Um, the last label that did that was Ukrainian, of course, and we're not in touch at the moment. I believe those guys are okay. Last time I spoke to him, he had at least one of them had been able to get his family out, but I don't know exactly where he is right now. So it's not, that situation. It's just nothing we can do about it. Just gotta hope for the best. So yeah. And again, they still have a copy of the picture with you and Teddy Bear passed out. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the photo from like the late 90s or something like that Sarah kept passing out. No. Yeah, it's a younger version of me, drunk and stupid. No, you're not, Martin. I am the Black Wizard. It's not you. Timu, as far as finish dates, on this Mayhem tour, I don't have a control over it, and it takes a while to explain the mechanics of booking a tour, but it's a lot of people involved, and once a tour is booked, it's very hard to just change something about it or adding dates. It's a lot easier, it's a lot harder. It's not as easy. It's not, fuck, I can't fucking talk. It's easier said than done. That's what I tried to say. My brain doesn't work. And all of that aside, I'm not actually the headliner, so there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, I did wonder for like a few moments why we're not doing Finland. Maybe Mayhem were just there. I don't even know. Finland would have been great, but like Norway and Scandinavia, in a sense, Finland is not in a practical place in Europe. It's way up north, so it's easy to miss it, unfortunately. Fort Worth, Texas, yeah. Maybe next time, next US tour, who knows? There should be a Paris show on this US tour, Sarah. So go there. Thank you, Tura. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Michael Styles looked up Dungeon Music. Nothing quite has the same sound. I don't know. I thought a lot of them were copying. I don't know, man. I mean, I've heard some cool stuff. We had a few openers on the previous US tour, like Fogweaver and a few others, and I thought they were all good, man. I liked them all, and they were friendly people. What I found a bit frustrating with that tour was a lot of them didn't really want to come out and do live shows. Because I did try to get quite a few of them out and open for me, and it was a bit of a hassle. So, all my respect to the ones that did come out. I liked them. I thought they had their own thing, but it's a matter of taste, I suppose. But yeah, I missed a few comments here. Yeah, the old black and white fanzines, those were great, man. There's not a lot of those left. There's a few. Adam Gaz, More Smell of Rain. Well, the stuff I'm working on at the moment, it does have its moments, I think, where you do get a bit of that atmosphere going on in the music, but there's also an evolution in it, and that's that just comes natural to me. I like to keep moving forward, but I know people like that record a lot, and so do I. So but I think some of the new stuff that's going on right now has some of that atmosphere in it. I saw somebody mention something about modulars, but I didn't catch the text. I mean, if you just want to repeat it. Um, Martin, want to say hi? All right, cool. So there's a Stargate. That's a couple of decades. Thank you. Good day from Michigan. Cool. Alec, are there no Stargate demos? Not really. The only demo that was ever made was the one on the Absolute Supper. Oh, Adrian. Or if I'm interested in modular synthesis, yeah, I want to, and I started just a little bit. Um, I got a couple of things. I mean, I got like I got some sort of analog sequencers going on here now, and the MS-20, which is like semi-modular, is what they call it. It's like 50/50 hardwire, and modular. So that's something I got to sit down and really get into. But right now, I just realized once I had bought some of those items or pieces of gear that shit, I don't really have the time. So I played around with them and I've used them a little bit, but not in the sense where you patch 8 different cables into all kinds of weird inputs and make stuff happen. That's going to come down the line, though. I'd like to get into it, but I'm not in a Klaus Schulze fucking, you know, or Chris Frank's big rig from back in 1971. It's not going to be like that, but maybe a little bit. Yeah, it looks awesome though, and it sounds fantastic. Your dry just ate the original. Oh, did it? You have the sads? Yeah, shit. I'm sorry to hear that. You should buy like 8 new shirts from the web store, to make yourself happy. I feel like you've said Fort Worth, Texas like 8 times now. I'll try. Oh, the Eurorack? Cool. Yeah. Stefan Gerut, up Sigma Berserk, he's got that. He's all about the modular shit now. Mateo, there's no plan currently. We were kind of hoping we would be on that Mayhem tour, but it didn't happen. Watain got that, and then something happened, and then they didn't make it either. But obviously, at some point. Reissuing side projects. I reissue as much as I can of what I own the rights to, or where at least Eric cannot stop it. The stuff Eric owns, they've been talking about reissuing it, but they've been blowing us off since the fall of 2021. And we have tried to get them going. I have, for the sake of being pragmatic, and for the sake of the fans, and for the sake of those records, I buried the hatchet, so to speak, and said I'll be happy to collaborate with you guys. So I've tried to tell them that for 6 months, but they've done nothing but blow me off. So I'm done. If they decide to reissue Mortiis at this point, it's probably going to be without me. It's just, I gotta draw the line somewhere, man. There's if I keep like fucking following those dudes like a goddamn dog, there's just no pride left in this, So I gotta draw the line, and we just drew the line last week. Like, fuck this, man. If they come back now and want to do it, it's gonna be without us. Unfortunately, because I know without me they're gonna make a inferior fucking product, because those guys don't know how to put good shit out. They're cheap as fuck, and they're assholes. I'm sorry to say that, but it's just the truth. I don't know a lot about French black metal. I was into some French thrash metal like Aggressor and Loud Blast back in the day, Mutilator, things like that. But I don't know a whole lot about the black metal scene there. I know there is one, and I know some crazy shit happened there, but I didn't really follow it. Fata Morgana, cool. Yeah, awesome. Can't hear a thing. Sitting in a bar with a live band right here, but all right, cool. Um, did I like using the old user net? Not sure what you mean there. Um, Vaughn just came about because Mortiis back in those days was all based upon this sort of parallel fantasy universe that I created around it. You know, that's all in that book of mine. But um, I had, I was going through depressions and all that kind of shit, and I really wanted to express that in some music, and I decided that okay, I don't feel like that fits with Mortis. It's just gonna break the concept somehow. So I just created Vaughn, man. The music was fairly similar to Mortis and slightly different, maybe a bit colder and more experimental after a while. But that was the only reason. I just put more like a human touch on it, But I didn't feel like it belonged within the Mortis universe. Moin Moin from Flensburg, Germany. Cool. Since 1994. Wow, that's a long time ago. Hello, Danny. Yeah, 94, huh? Fuck me. Getting old. Adrian, Coil. Yeah, of course, I love Coil. I don't have all their records. I used to listen to like Horse Rottweiler, um, Scatology, and like the older stuff. And the unreleased Hellraiser theme was fucking awesome. And if you go further back, of course, you're gonna hit Throbbing Gristle, which was crazy, So I was into that stuff too, and Psychic TV, of course, was the other branch off of that, and then Kristen Cozy, I was into that. Still am, of course. So yeah. I enjoyed archaeology when it comes to music. Seeing going back and finding the roots of things. That's very interesting to me. Um, Hello from Kentucky. Cool. Pazuzu from the 90s. I remember the name, or I'm getting it from the Exorcist movie or something. But I can't put sound to that name. I don't remember what it sounded like. Yeah, Psychic TV, man, that was fucking cool too. I probably like Coil more than Psychic TV, but then again, Psychic TV put out like a million records, and I haven't heard all of them, of course. So there might be like, um, I'm sure they both have their moments where, you feel like nothing gets better than this. My kids are 11 and 14 pretty soon. Well, my kid's not in the music scene, they're just regular kids playing TV games and shit like that. Um, I mean, he plays a little bit of drums, but it's not really he's more into gaming. Um, oh yeah, the Castle Party. Um, do I know what I'm going to play in the tour? It's going to be the Spirit of Rebellion album with a twist, so to speak. Do you remember the guy who killed Mortis with a saber? I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about. Thank you, Jaina. Um, oh, raising kids while being part of the scene. It's okay. I think it's probably like raising kids, doing whatever else, whatever you might do for a living. So I don't really think about that too much. I think the only thing that's unusual about it is now that we're going back to normal, hopefully, there will hopefully be more touring and things like that. So it's going to go back to that old once in a while being gone for a month and things like that. And that can get a little rough sometimes. So you're going to miss them, of course. But, it's I chose this. What am I going to do? So you deal with it. Simple. Arcane's good, yeah. Peter's a nice guy. I haven't seen him in a long time, but he was cool. Yeah, you got it, Dalton. Sorry about that. Anthony, no, I used to back in the old PlayStation days. I realized quite early on that this was going to be um, what I like to call an eater of time. You get hooked on that game shit. You don't no longer have a life. You no longer do anything else. So I put that shit down, man, and focused on important stuff like making music. Backstage at Mortiis. Yeah, that is the thing, Leslie. You can FaceTime and stuff like that, So at least you have that connection there. That is true. We'll try that. Hello, Peter. Bond? Yeah. um, we talked about Bond, I think. Thoughts about techno rave shit? Um, Not really for me. I remember when I heard techno and rave and shit like that back in the 90s. I thought it was cool for like 2 minutes, and I just realized this is um a lot of the same. And that's coming from a guy that made Dungeon Synth, right? Um, it it sonically it sounds cool sometimes, but it just gets because I'm from the old hard rock school, I guess. So that sort of like singer songwriter kind of gene kicks in where I grew up on fucking Alice Cooper and Led Zeppelin, so you kind of songs, right? So you listen to techno, it doesn't really go anywhere a lot of times, and I'm sure some tweakers out there, if they're listening, they might just hate me for saying it because maybe I'm just not getting it. But that said, I like the old like I tend to dig the roots of things where in like Front U42 and things like that, which I suppose to some degree you could call at least a part of like an early techno-ish scene. So I'm totally into that stuff and early Nitzareb, and shit like that. So and a lot of that stuff is intertwined. So I don't want to get on too thin ice. Just club music in general, it just kind of bores me quite quickly. John Chaos, I haven't really heard any of those bands. I gotta be honest, I'm not really following. I don't have a lot of time for it. They might be great, man. I mean, I just haven't heard them. I don't have time to sit down and discover new music, I'm afraid. Mortiis Ministry and Kim. Yeah, yeah, fuck, man, that would be a dream come true, man. Einstürzen, I suppose. I mean, they use technology, I guess, if you want to get really sort of anal about it, I guess. Um, at that point, you got stuff like, oh fuck, the old Frontline Assembly and all those bands, Skinny Puppy, they were all early, and Throbbing Gristle, even earlier. So it all branches out and becomes new things anyway. Godflesh were great. Swans, I believe, influenced Godflesh. Like, we listen to really early Swans, you can hear. I'm pretty sure Justin listened to a lot of Swans, and he must have. Ministry, yeah, fucking, they were fucking awesome. I love the punk vibe they used to have back in the day. All right, cool, Sarah. Thank you. Come Paris, we're constantly. You're going to Paris? Is that what you're saying? That'd be great. Yeah, Swans were great, man. Jarbo, yeah. I haven't listened to Swans in a while. Re-recording Eric. That can't be done because they put a really terrible clause in a contract where it says I can't legally re-record anything. They know all the tricks, and they're making sure you can't use any of them. It's a very ironclad contract, man. Cop shoot cop. Yeah, I met Danzig. I mean, I toured with him for a month, man. So, met him many times during that tour. We actually went to Vinnie Paul's house in Texas with Glenn and Vinnie, of course, and a few other guys from the tour, and partied all night. That was great. Rest in peace, by the way. That was bad news when we heard about that in Nepal. Um, I haven't heard summonings ice ages. I haven't heard. I mean, I know it's the same answer from me every time you ask me if I've heard something, and unless it's something from like 1982, I mean, I probably haven't heard it. I honestly am not paying attention to anything. I lock myself in my studio and I work on my own music, and I go home. That's basically my life. Um, Mary Moon, Gary Newman, yeah, Vadruna. I was suggesting doing shows with them, and I never heard back. I guess they don't want to do it. Or maybe nobody got the emails. I don't know. I didn't personally get in touch. I told my manager, but yeah, sounds good, Dalton. Brazil. Yeah, yeah. Of course, like um, referencing Mateo. I mean, obviously, Sepultura, Sarcophago, Holocaust, like all the old Cogumelo bands, really. Jackal, Mutilator, a lot of that stuff. Sex Trash. That was outrageous. Mystifier. A lot of that stuff. Of course, I'm showing my age when I mention these guys because these are old like bands from back in the '80s, and some of them are still going too. I think actually, all I think Mutilator are back. Holocausto, I don't know. But those and South American bands were so extreme. It was like you can take any other extreme band from anywhere in the world, and the South Americans would do it more extreme. Maybe with the exception of Blasphemy because they were fucking intense, but they're like a whole other universe. But um, South Americans fucking knew how to make shit extreme. Goth Minister, yeah. I haven't talked to him for a while. I know I've seen him on Instagram. He's making some videos. I think he's got a new album coming. Um, Basil Polidorus, yeah, fantastic. The Conan soundtrack, Conan the Barbarian, is one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. John Chaos, yeah, yeah. John Bowers was a genius. Did you know that he drowned in a boat accident? That's unfortunately how he died. I think in the 20s. Um, Terrible boat accident, and he went down with it. You know, Tragic. Troops of Doom, cool. Ex Sepultura, yeah. Wow, I didn't know that. Because that's off of one of their old songs from Morbid Visions or something. They had a song called Troops of Doom, I think. Sarah, I don't know Marilyn Manson. I met him once or twice. He was a nice guy. Seemingly, I don't know if any of that stuff that they're saying about him now is true. Then that's all pretty fucking awful. Um, but I don't know him in that sense. I couldn't say yes or no to any of the allegations. But there's a lot of stuff being said about him now. I'm gonna leave it at that. It's dark. Your 87-year-old dad? Is that what you're saying? He likes the hard stuff. Awesome. Awesome, Adam. Uh, Drudka. Right, yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah. Summer goes. As far as my makeup scheme, it's the short response to that is the fact I grew up with Kiss. So I was into big Image bands, Kiss and Wasp. So I loved Image, like really in your face extreme Image, and then black metal came around, of course, with which was more about the attitude, if you ask me, than anything else. Um, and then of course I got into Lord of the Rings. So those three elements, um, generated something in my mind, and the ideas started flowing after a couple of years of being active as a musician and starting to cultivate my own creativity. And there you go. You know, it's nothing magical happened. It was I think it was probably just a natural evolution of ideas collecting in my head over a couple of years. Wasp was they were great. Blackie is very talented. I mean, you know, it's kind of sad to hear that he doesn't always treat people very nice and he cancels shows over fucking nothing. Apparently, that kind of sucks, you know. But fantastic musician. Tura, yeah. People say a lot of strange shit, man. Ishan's great. I love his opinions. He's a good talker. Um, no, Fabio, I've never been able or had the opportunity to work with Dead Can Dance. I mean, I consider that to be so above my ability and talent, and it's just a different fucking universe, you know. But I mean, if I can get her to sing on something, or you know, I mean, I do have some fucking great vocal contributions though on the new stuff by three different singers, Sarah being one of them. So I think some of that's gonna blow your minds. To be honest, you probably won't expect it. So some of that is a bit that can dancey. Um, a guy I respect a lot actually started referencing like sort of 70s Pink Floyd, some of the music I was making right now, which kind of blew my mind a little bit. My favorite Venom album, um, Welcome to Hell. Yeah. Wax Tracks, were they becoming a Chicago landmark? I think so. I mean, just for the fact that Ministry was involved with it, and you know, he inspired so many people. KMFDM, I believe, put stuff out there. Thrill Kill Cult, right? Thousand Homo DJs and all kinds of shit. Did Lard? No, Lard was probably Jello's label, Alternative Tentacles. But I think so. You know, she was that. There was a pretty fucking original sound that came out of Wax Tracks, in my opinion. So like the American industrial stuff. Maybe I'm wrong. But that's what I like to call it, the American industrial kind of music, which I thought Americans did way better. I always thought, maybe I'm swearing in church, as they say, but I think I prefer American industrial rock or industrial music to a lot of the European stuff. But I mean, a lot of people might be pissed off by that, but fuck it. Um, Utopians and idealism, is there any matches? I wouldn't even know where to begin with a question like that. It sounds like philosophy and ideology and politics in one big soup, but I'm not even going to touch it. Sorry. Smell of Rain vinyl re-release soon. Talk to Eric. They're fucking bastards. They're not going to do it, and if they do it, it's going to be without me. I had a whole big monologue about that about half an hour ago. I would love to do it. Well, I would have loved to do it, but they fucked me around too much, so I'm over it. I'm done. Maybe somebody will make a bootleg. Revolt and Cox, yeah, they would have been on Wax Tracks, and that's another Al Jurgensen thing. I don't think Slayer is better necessarily than Bathory and Venom. I think all three bands have their highlights. You know, I don't think one Paz Driver is better than all of them. You know, um, Metal Inquisition. Um, I followed Ministry up until I think the Relapse album, and didn't wasn't he supposed to retire? I'm not sure about what you know. Was there like like a comeback or? Well, I pretty much liked all of it, but I like Ministry more when his being kind of like the more sort of punky version of it, as opposed to I felt there was a time where the riffs started sounding a bit like Slayer, and I thought, well, I think you're better when you're just being that crazy Al Jurgensen that's kind of pissed off and punky, you know. That's just my personal opinion. The Peruvian edition of some of the albums, that guy just disappeared. So if that record ever comes out, they're all bootlegs in that case. So I guess I got fucked. It happens. He had a whole bunch of excuses, and then he just disappeared. And I eventually sent him an email saying our collaboration is over, it's canceled, and he's not allowed to put these records out. You know, Shonen Mercy is a venom replicate. You know, I always thought Shonen Mercy sounded like a lot like Judas Priest. Apparently, Kerry King's favorite band is Judas Priest. So I always thought it had a lot of Priest vibes in it, just faster and noisier. I didn't see the Lords of Chaos movie for various reasons, mostly because I didn't feel like getting pissed off. My Nails are fantastic. I think Trent Reznor is a genius. Again, I haven't heard the latest stuff, but I followed it closely up until and including with Teeth, at least, which I loved. But I think my favorite is probably The Fragile, and then portions of The Downward Spiral and Broken, and Pretty Hate Machine. Really, you know, it's all great though. Like, it doesn't matter what he does; it's gonna be fucking awesome. Um, when it comes to Bastards of Boys Land, I'm gonna do this in English. My friends were they were all into the black metal thing. Most of them just got into Emperor at least real quick. I think it took them longer. If they ever got into Mortiis, it probably took them longer because when I started with Mortiis, it was not a lot of people were doing what I was doing. Um, so I think there was a period of time where people needed to get used to it. Um, these days, I think they own at least one album, you know. So it was accepted, and to some degree, even they even became fans, you know, which is cool. Demons Are Back started out, Michael, simply um, as a sort of bass riff, very simple bass riff. I think it's just like alternating between like an octave at a rhythmical sort of interval. And I just kept building on it, and it just became this really heavy electronic, industrial, Rob Zombie-ish type of song. So yeah, best bolt thrower record, probably Realm of Chaos in my opinion. Um, I interviewed what was her name? Joe, the bass player from my magazine, like ages ago. Uruguay. I'm butchering. I know the country, but I don't know how to fucking pronounce that in English. Uruguay, Uruguay. Cool though. Glad to see you here. Uh, I'm not Mortis then, Sean. What do you mean by that? Do I have a favorite punk band? Not a favorite one. I used to listen to Dead Kennedys a lot, and I'm sure a lot of people argue whether or not that's punk. I think it's, to me, it was always punk. I thought Misfits were punk. I love them too. Um, that's American stuff. Exploited, GBH. I fucking love GBH. Hawthorne was a huge fan of GBH. If you check out City Babe Attacked by Rats, you're going to hear a lot of similarities with that and early Bathory. And City Babe came out in like 1980. So that says something about the roots of black metal, if you ask me. Sex Pistols were great. Even shit like The Jam, I used to listen to a little bit. Um, the Clash, quite a few of those records are really cool. So, and the Barookers and Discharge, of course, Amoebics. And now we're getting into that whole sort of crust area where punk becomes grindcore and, you know, axe grinder. And all of a sudden we're talking about Napalm Death, you know. And so it's cool how things evolve and become other things. Sam Hain were cool, weird. I heard Sam Hain, Danzig was kind of Sam Hain in the beginning, and then Rick Rubin had something to say about it, and it became Danzig, and then it became huge. Don't know if that's true. Doyle Adam, yeah, he was awesome. He was on that Danzig tour too. He was just the nicest guy. He used to give us his beers because he didn't want to be drunk on stage, I think. He always had like a couple of six packs of Corona, and several times he would just give them to us because we only got like that shitty Budweiser, and he used to give us his beer. That's like my memory. Um, Yeah, like long messages here are just gonna flash by. I'm not gonna see them, so I won't be able to get back on that. Would you agree with Lemmy about the Clash being way better than the Sex Pistols? Yeah, I think if you look at songwriting and musicianship and just being able to stay together and put out more than one record, then yeah. But Sex Pistols had, I mean, their album was fucking good, and they knew how to play. I guess with the exception of um, Sid Vicious, apparently wasn't really a good player, but legendary punk icon for sure. But whether or not he was an actual musician, I guess it's a different question. So yeah, Lemmy was definitely on point. Hypocrisy, haven't heard that much. My wife used to listen to Pain, which, if we're talking about the band, or it was the side project, and they were pretty good. Motorhead are fantastic, of course. Would I ever cover any? I don't think so. Um, it would be fun to do like an old Kiss cover or something like that one day, if I was in a band situation. But how do I deal with stress? I wait for it to pass. And I try to ignore it, but it's not easy. Uh, I don't know what you mean, Tim. I have no idea what that word is. I'm sorry, I can't really get into that. I don't know. Favorite new bands? I don't like new bands. Um, 80s goth was there was a lot of good stuff there. The old classics, of course, like Sisters and Bauhaus and um, Christian Death. Play Dead were fucking great though. If you ever or Pills of Nephilim and shit like that. Oh, the Decker's Dream, the synthesizer. I haven't been able to. I have this big list of shit that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna rebuild half my studio once I'm done with the tour and the new record. Um, I just have to prioritize now. So there's a lot of stuff I really want to do, like that modular shit that I was talking about a few minutes ago. Um, it's just gonna have to happen later on. I love the sisters, Irina. Um, I have all their albums and the 12 inches and all that stuff, and I've seen them live a couple times. I saw them live in Chicago in '97. That was pretty cool. I think Andrew Eldridge was blonde at the time. That was a bit weird. Sisters were great. The Mission, early The Mission. Yeah, Christian Death, especially early. Well, any '80s Christian Death were great. Favorite Malaysian Black? I don't know. I used to have some demos back in from Malaysia or Singapore. I just can't remember. Mercy. Are you referring to the Swedish old doom band? Susan and Banshees. Yeah, I never listened to a lot of it. I should. I should check that out. John Chaos, would you play again with Emperor? We're talking about doing something in the summer. Um, Something in the vein of what we did with the streaming show. But it'll be over in Norway and I think one in Sweden. I can't say a lot more than that, but we've been working on something. Um, I don't know the band Greater Than One. I have no idea what that is. My favorite Kiss album. The song I would imagine covering with Kiss, probably maybe something like Black Diamond or something like that. I mean, I'm a really big fan of the three first ones. Um, my absolute favorite Kiss album is probably Live One, which is like this fantastic fucking live record, like the greatest hits of the three first albums. I like what a lot of the stuff that came after. I love The Elder. Everybody likes to sort of piss on it, which I'm even Kiss themselves. But Destroyer, I like it. Rock and Roll Over, Love Gun. Fuck, man, I like most Kiss records up until and including probably Lick It Up. You know, I just nostalgically speaking, I think I like the three first ones best, and Alive One is sort of like the compilation of that. I was into Swedish industrial acts like in Slaughter Natives and Race on Death and Deutsch Nepal, Bride to Death Now. I was always into those guys. I suppose I don't talk a lot about it because I don't really necessarily always get the questions. Timu, again, your questions are way too long. There's no way I can't see them. They flash by too quickly. Um, the last show I attended outside of me playing with Morse, I don't know. I never go out. You'll never see me. um, I don't know. Sisters of Mercy, 1997. Yeah, Wasp is awesome. We talked about that a while ago, man. I I love their first album, um, but I also think The Last Command is fantastic. That might have to some degree better songwriting. It just doesn't have the same charm. Almost, just not quite. The first one is kind of dark, and I think that's what appeals to people a little bit. The second one, Last Command, is much lighter in a sense. Um, but you got songs like Wild Child and Blind in Texas, and they're fantastic. I even like the third one, The Electric Circus, even though it's getting really commercial. But I like it. Um, the Awakened Forgotten Songs from Celebrate. Timu, yeah, finally a question I can actually read. Yeah, to a degree, yes. Some of that one day I would do that. Yeah. Um, Maybe not at the same time, but now and then, here and there. That would be cool. Hey, Joe, how's it going? Um, so, yeah, you need to keep your text in English. I don't read if this is Spanish or Portuguese. Yes, David, I am in contact with Sarah Diva. We are working together as well on some music that will be put out in the future. The whole tour will be old school performance, not the industrial stuff. It'll be more like a dungeon synth, sort of epic, percussive dungeon synth type of stuff. Yeah, I did sub music for film. That's a long time ago, and it wasn't really a great experience. I had to fight to keep my rights and stuff like that. So it felt like it was more hassle than anything. All right, man. I'll see you, Ulrich. Favorite places to tour and why? I don't really have favorite places. I mean, I most of the times I've toured the States, I've had a great time. I think that's mostly because it's one language, it's one currency. You're in the same country. There's no culture shock to a degree. It depends on where you go. There will be differences and you know how people are and things like that, and the nature and shit. But by and large, it's like every day is kind of the same. I like that to some degree. Um, but I don't know if I have a distinctly favorite place to go. Places change, You can have a great time in one place, and next time you go back there, it sucks. You never know, and vice versa. Um, Colombia, hello. Why did I omit? I don't know. I just didn't feel like it. Someone was asking why I didn't do the spoken word live. I guess for those songs. Because no big reason. I just didn't feel like I wanted to do the pitch down talking voice on top. I don't know. Maybe I felt like it was a bit cheesy. You know. No, I just didn't do it. Because if I don't feel like doing it, I'm not gonna do it. I don't remember that team. I don't remember what I did back in '96 and '98 for the few shows that I did. I can't remember. You would just have to listen, and if there's changes, then there's changes. Would I ever go back to a band format? Yeah, I would, but under the correct circumstances where it doesn't just generate unhappiness, then I would for sure do it. Cool. See you at the Mystic Festival. Cool, Anna. Um, Let me see here. Yeah, Ross, I'm seeing your message here. The tour will be in Scotland. There's going to be a Glasgow show. Just go on Bands in Town on Mayhem or Mortiis, and you'll see all the dates. All right, I gotta get going. So this has been cool. It's been an hour and 10 minutes. Um, I gotta get back home. I'm in my studio across town. Hopefully I'll see a lot of you on tour, and keep an eye out on my socials. So I'm gonna post some more updates on various stuff before I head out. And yeah, hope to see you guys soon. All right.